I have a love-hate relationship with dropping little breadcrumbs in front of my players and seeing if they're going to pick them up or not. And then they don't pick them up, and I'm kind of glad that they didn't because it was a cool surprise, but then I kind of wanted them to because it was a cool surprise. Well, that happened, and so I'm going to use my audience here to share with somebody what was going on that my players didn't pick up on. When last we left our heroes... So the players are in the swamps to the north of the little village of Fenlock, and there's been a bunch of mosquitoes bugging, pun super intended, all of the villagers there, and so they were hired to sort of see what the problem was. They figured out that there is a hag living in this swamp, but the hag is at least supposedly not responsible for the mosquitoes. No, there's a group of kobolds led by some big thing. They've later found out to be a black dragon that has settled into part of the swamp, and that is what is causing the mosquitoes to infest the area. And there's been some encounters with kobolds and sturges and all kinds of cool things like that. And then last week they had this gigantic boss battle with a black dragon. And this week they're sort of recovering. They had just taken a rest. They're nearly unconscious. They were recovering from that. And they said, well, I mean, dragons always have treasure. I wonder if we could see what their treasure might be in there. However, after the dragon Vutharvith died, his lair flooded, sort of a contingency of him not being there anymore. The lair began to flood, completely submerged underwater. And so the only person with a really good con score, Phaedra, the elven barbarian, she decided to swim down there, hold her breath for as long as she could, and explore the area. And see, here's the problem with that. It's completely pitch black, and Phaedra has no way to make light happen. With the exception of, I think because Phaedra is a wild magic barbarian, I feel like she said something about there being a way for Phaedra to get lights around her or light up the area if she raged in a very specific way. Like, she rolls on the wild magic table, and if she rolls a certain number, there was going to, like, light up the area a little bit with, like, fireflies or glow around her character or something. And I was like, I mean, okay. And so she uses all of her rages down there, and obviously doesn't get the right ones, and she's looking around, kind of feeling around, doesn't find stuff. She has to come back out and breathe and go back down. And so eventually she does find a small repository of treasure and grabs some stuff and bails, but decides not to continue diving down there. She doesn't want to exhaust herself. She doesn't know how many things there are down there. And so she grabs a bunch of stuff, and they're like, listen, we've got some cool things, and we're already richer than kings. Let's bail now. And so the players grab some loot, feeling a lot better. In the morning, they head on out to go and see Auntie Agatha. No, that doesn't make any sense. Auntie Agatha. That's a lot better. Who says Auntie? Auntie Agatha. And she has some information for them, some deals that she has struck with them. So they're going back to see Auntie Agatha. So they make their way back to the hag, and they share all this information with her about what was going on, the fact there's a black dragon. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes when black dragons settle in an area, bugs and infestation and swamp and everything is brackish and gross, and yeah, that tracks with a black dragon. So glad that you cleared that out. And as per our deal, you asked me what was causing all the trees to die around Glennon and what that strange crystal was. Well, it seems to me that is dryad magic, and so it's consistent with all this, and so it makes sense based on what you've told me that maybe a dryad has planted this primal natural magic there to kill the forest as a punishment to the humans who have set up their lumber mill operation there. And so there is a lady of the woods, a tree spirit that if you go and make a deal with, it's possible that she will get rid of that, but that is the source of the magic. And then I did a thing where I dropped some breadcrumbs. There was a noise that was from inside the hag's hut, and she was like, hold on a second, you just hang out here, don't come inside, be right back. And the players interestingly enough, we're like, sure, we will display no curiosity whatsoever. We will take everything that you say at face value and be suspicious of you. None percent. We're just going to sit here and twiddle our thumbs. And I gave them every opportunity to kind of do something about it, but they didn't. Here's what was happening inside. The players didn't ask about, they didn't know about, they didn't find out about. There was a young girl inside the hag's hut, and she is the hag's daughter. If you're not familiar with the lore of hags, how hags reproduce and how new hags are made is a hag will steal a young baby girl, ideally from a nearby human population, sometimes elven populations. I think that's how you get various kinds of hags. Like hags from the Feywild are a different kind, or an elven hag is different than like a regular green hag. I'm not super sure about that, but the hags take a baby and they eat the baby, which is the creepiest thing ever. And then they get pregnant and then they give birth to a hag. And so that baby looks like a normal human girl until she's like of age-ish, and then starts to become a hag. And there is a young girl in the hut becoming a hag. And I was kind of hoping that the players would be suspicious and peek in or eavesdrop or something, and confront Auntie Agatha and say, what's going on in there? Like, who is that? And the little girl would say, no, this is my mom. I've been here the whole time, because to her, she has been here her whole life. But the players would probably think, oh no, she's been like tricked or is being held against her will. And so there would have been a whole dramatic scene there. But the players didn't care or notice at all. So that was a whole scene that I was kind of interested in. It's like, ooh, what's going to happen here? Are you going to try to attack the hag? You don't know how many other hags there might or might not be. And there's a young girl. What are you going to do to try to save this? That's not part of the deal. Like, all of these things didn't happen at all. And so I think that was kind of interesting, and normally DMs don't get a chance to share the cool things that the players didn't interact with, so I'm sharing it with all of you. So then Auntie Agatha comes back out and continues talking. She's like, oh, sorry about that, just, stuff going on in there, no worries. Where were we? And she begins to try to make more deals with the players. She starts name dropping people from their past that maybe they're looking for, or various things like that. Hey, this person from your past, or this person you're trying to avenge. Wouldn't it be interesting if you knew where they were? You knew if this person was dead or alive. We could make a deal. And all of the players very wisely decided that was a terrible idea, with the exception, I love this man, of Virgil playing Phaedra. She was tempted into hearing about Landcaster, the person who destroyed her village when she was growing up. She's like, wait a second, you know who Landcaster is? And the old lady's like, yeah, I'll tell you exactly who Landcaster is and where he is, last I have heard, in exchange for just a tiny little piece of your luck. Just a little piece, just to keep an old woman alive in these dark and dangerous places. It all adds up. It doesn't really hurt anyone. It's a win-win. I get some luck from a bunch of different people, and it sustains me, helps me out a little bit, and you get what you want. So isn't that a win-win for all of us? Virgil agrees to this, and then Phaedra is given the information. And Virgil tries to ask, like, so Nick, what does that mean for me to give up some of Phaedra's luck? I was like, bro, it's exactly what it sounds like. You're gonna give up some of Phaedra's luck. He's like, yeah, but is that gonna be, the next time I roll a 20, it's a 1? I was like, how would your character know that? And he's like, oh, I hate that phrase. It's such a powerful phrase as a DM. How would your character know that? Because it obviously it dodges the question, right? But it also keeps your player focused on what the world is, what their character knows or doesn't know. The fact that their character doesn't think in game terms, rolling 20s, rolling 1s. And so a little bit of Phaedra's luck has been stolen, and it'll be interesting to see how and when that comes into play. And you best believe I've got that in my notes all over the place, so I don't forget to use it. So, agreeing to the deal with the hag, Phaedra is told that Landcaster is a descendant of the heathen kings of old, a line of Landcaster. His family sort of survived through peasant revolt. They were demon-worshipping, terrible people, and there was a peasant revolt against them. They were deposed and executed, but one survived. A young woman and her son managed to escape, and through the centuries, they've gone into hiding, changed their names, and passed down the truths of their lineage from one generation to the next, always living in shadows, biding their time until now. There is a Lancaster who seeks power once again, and the name that he goes by in polite society is Oswald Gantry. And he seeks a different kind of power than previously. He knows his history, knows that rulers can be overthrown. He wants immortality, because you can't kill somebody who can't die, or at least that's the way that he thinks, and you can rule forever if you can't be killed. And so this Oswald Gantry is out in the world, and supposedly he is, had his fingers in lots of political pies, but he has gone east of the wall into the wilds that are to the east, and is gathering some sort of a powerful force there. And so Lancaster, Oswald Gantry, these names are now fueled with a bit more information that the players can do something with. And so happy with the exchange, because they don't know the price that they paid, they decline any other offers and decide to make their way back to Fenlock, gather the silver that is their reward, and head back towards Glennon to see about this Lady of the Wood, this tree spirit who might be behind the trees dying. And that is where we left things. The players headed back to Glennon to see what's going on, if they can make some deals. They know they have to probably come to some sort of an agreement with the Lady of the Wood, but also Ellie Toppin, the person who runs the sawmill here. And it'll be interesting to see, how do you get those two people in a room, and are they going to come to any sort of agreement? And I think that'll be a really interesting sort of negotiation. Hopefully the players sort of take the reins and try to figure out what will each side agree to, and figure all of these things out. So that was all for this week. A lot of talking to sort of come down from the big boss battle that was last week. This sort of my philosophy very much is to make sure things don't get stale, is to always have a bit of variety in sessions. You never want your campaign to just be one thing. It's easier for people to burn out that way. And so, you have a little bit of combat, and then you make sure the next session there's more role-playing, negotiation. You make sure that there's some exploration. The players find and learn something cool. And then you make sure there's some more combat. So I never go too long without doing some of those things to make sure that it's always being shaken up. Even if they're going through a dungeon, I definitely don't want to have 3 or 4 or 5 sessions of just combat, because that's not everyone's jam. And so I like to keep things up, have some variety, and make sure that everyone is getting all of the cool things out of D&D, especially because different players and different characters excel in different areas. So it always, with that variety, you get to see different people shining in the spotlight. So another little nugget of advice here at the end of the video. For those of you who have stuck all the way to the end, thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next time.